Have you ever noticed that the moment you confront a manipulative person, somehow you become the problem? You bring up what they did, and suddenly they have an explanation. You point out the contradiction, and suddenly you are too sensitive. You establish a boundary, and suddenly they are the victim. Before you know it, you are defending yourself instead of discussing what they did. That is the trap. Manipulation rarely works through obvious force. It works through confusion, emotional pressure, guilt, timing, selective kindness, and carefully chosen words. The manipulator does not always need to control your decisions. Sometimes they only need to control your emotional reaction to their behavior. And this is where Machiavelli's strategic thinking becomes surprisingly relevant. The smartest response is not always confrontation. It is not always exposing someone, warning them, or proving that you have figured them out. Sometimes the stronger move is to observe quietly, understand the pattern, protect your information, control your reactions, and change the amount of access that person has to you. In this video, we're going deeper than ordinary advice about dealing with toxic people. We will uncover 7 strategic rules for recognizing manipulation and making yourself far harder to control. Stay until the end, because the final rule changes the entire way you think about power, conflict, and self-control. Now let's dive deeper. Number 1. Stop fighting the manipulator's version of reality. A manipulator wants you arguing about what happened. That is already their battlefield. Have you ever walked away from an argument thinking, "Wait, how did I become the one defending myself?" That is one of the most dangerous signs you are dealing with manipulation. A manipulative person does not always try to prove that they are right. Sometimes their real objective is to make you so busy proving that you are right, that you completely lose sight of what they originally did. Imagine you confront someone because they lied to you. Instead of answering the question, they say, "You always think the worst of me. Why are you so suspicious? After everything I have done for you, this is how you treat me." Notice what just happened. The conversation moved from their dishonesty to your personality. Now you are explaining why you asked the question, defending your character, and trying to convince them that you are not a bad person. That is the battlefield they wanted. This is why you have to stop treating every accusation as something that deserves an answer. Some statements are designed to pull you into a debate, not to discover the truth. You do not need to correct every false story. You do not need to convince someone who has already decided to misunderstand you. And you certainly do not need to keep explaining yourself to someone who uses your explanations as ammunition. Sometimes the most intelligent response is remarkably simple. Observe the pattern, remember what happened, make your decision, and change your behavior accordingly. Because the moment you stop needing the manipulator to agree with your reality, they lose one of their greatest weapons against you. You stop arguing about the story. You start responding to the pattern. Number 2. Never reveal which button they pressed. One of the biggest mistakes you can make around a manipulator is showing them exactly what hurts you. Have you ever noticed that some people seem to remember exactly what makes you angry, insecure, or desperate for approval? That is not always accidental. A manipulative person pays attention to reactions. They notice what makes you explain yourself. They notice what makes you panic. They notice which words make you suddenly defensive. And once they discover the right button, they may keep pressing it whenever they want to influence you. Imagine you are dealing with someone who knows you care deeply about being respected. During an argument, they suddenly say, "Everyone thinks you are difficult to deal with." Maybe that statement is completely untrue. But if you immediately start defending your reputation, asking who said it, and demanding proof, you have just shown them something valuable. You showed them where the button is. Next time they want to unsettle you, they may press it again. This does not mean you should become emotionless. That is unrealistic. You will still feel anger, embarrassment, disappointment, and fear. The wisdom is learning not to turn every feeling into visible information for someone who may use it against you. Pause, breathe, listen carefully. Ask yourself, are they trying to communicate something, or are they trying to produce a reaction? That question can completely change the conversation. Sometimes the strongest response is not a clever comeback. It is a calm face, a short answer, and no emotional performance. You do not have to prove that their words hurt you. You do not have to show them that they found the exact insecurity you have been fighting privately. The more someone studies your reactions, the more carefully you should manage what you reveal. Because when someone knows exactly what makes you react, they have information. But when they can no longer predict what will move you, their control begins to disappear. Number 3, let them believe they are winning. This is where strategy becomes uncomfortable. Sometimes the smartest move is not correcting someone's assumption about you. Have you ever felt the urge to prove to someone that you are smarter than they think you are? That urge can be expensive. Sometimes, the moment you show someone that you have figured them out, they stop revealing themselves. They become more careful with their words. They hide their intentions. They change their behavior just enough to make you question what you noticed. This is why one of the most uncomfortable forms of strength is allowing someone to underestimate you. Imagine you are working with a colleague who constantly takes credit for other people's ideas. One day, they take credit for something you contributed. You know exactly what happened. You could confront them immediately and expose everything you know. But suppose you calmly let the moment pass while quietly keeping records of your work and watching what happens next. They become comfortable. They continue behaving the same way. They reveal the pattern again. Now you are no longer dealing with one suspicious incident. You are dealing with a clear pattern. There is a difference between being passive and being patient. Passivity means you do nothing because you are afraid. Patience means you are gathering information before deciding what to do. That distinction matters. Not every battle needs to begin the moment you notice something wrong. Sometimes reacting too quickly gives the other person the opportunity to correct their behavior before you understand the full picture. Let them talk, let them explain, let them believe their performance is working, and watch what they do when they think nobody is paying attention. This does not mean becoming deceptive or playing games with everyone around you. It means resisting the childish need to announce every observation you make. You do not have to say, "I know what you are doing." Your decisions can communicate that you know. The person who constantly needs to prove that they understand the game may accidentally reveal their strategy. Sometimes real intelligence looks strangely ordinary. You listen, you observe, you say less, and while someone is celebrating a victory they think they have achieved, you are quietly deciding whether the game is even worth playing. Number 4, don't attack their mask. Remove its reward. Confronting a manipulator often creates exactly what they want: drama. They can suddenly become the victim. They can accuse you of being aggressive. Have you ever confronted someone about their behavior, only to watch them suddenly become the victim? You came with a simple concern, and somehow you ended up apologizing. That is one of the reasons manipulation can be so difficult to deal with. Some people do not just manipulate situations. They know how to turn confrontation into a performance. You accuse them of lying, and they accuse you of attacking them. You ask for accountability, and suddenly everyone is discussing your tone instead of their behavior. So what if you stopped attacking the mask? Imagine someone constantly gives you guilt whenever you refuse to do what they want. Every time you say no, they become cold, offended, or dramatic. If you keep arguing with them, you are giving them exactly what they need: your attention. Instead, change the reward. You do not argue for 30 minutes. You do not chase them when they become distant. You do not keep explaining your decision. You simply say, "I understand that you are upset, but my answer is still no." Then you continue with your day. At first, they may increase the pressure. This is important. When a tactic that used to work suddenly stops working, the person using it may try harder before giving up. Think about a child repeatedly asking for something because the parent eventually gives in after enough crying. If the parent suddenly stops rewarding the crying, the child may cry even louder at first. The increase does not necessarily mean the boundary is failing. It can mean the old strategy is being tested. The same principle can appear in adult relationships. If someone uses drama to gain access to you, reduce access. If they use your private information against you, share less. If they use guilt to obtain favors, stop rewarding guilt with compliance. If they provoke emotional reactions, become less emotionally available to the provocation. You are not trying to punish them. You are simply removing the payoff, because manipulation survives when manipulation works. When the reward disappears, the strategy loses its power. And sometimes the most effective way to defeat a manipulative pattern is not to fight it harder, but to make it useless. Number 5. Make your no boring. A powerful person doesn't need a courtroom every time they establish a boundary. No, I won't be doing that. Have you ever noticed how saying no can suddenly turn into a full courtroom trial? You say, "I cannot do that," and suddenly someone wants to know why. You explain. They question your explanation. You give another reason. They find a problem with that reason. Before long, you are defending a decision that never required their permission in the first place. This is where many people lose control of their boundaries. A manipulative person may not actually care about your reason. They care about finding something they can challenge. If you say, "I cannot come because I am tired," they can say, "But you were fine yesterday." If you say, "I cannot lend you money because I have expenses," they may tell you about all the times they helped you. Now your boundary has become a negotiation, so make your no boring. "I cannot do that. That does not work for me. I have decided differently. I am not available." Then stop. No anger, no long speech, no guilt, no attempt to make them agree. Imagine a friend constantly asking you for money. Every time you refuse, you give a detailed explanation. Eventually, they learn exactly which reasons can be challenged. But if you simply say, "I am not lending money," there is much less to negotiate. This does not mean you should become rude or careless with people's feelings. It means you understand that a boundary is a decision, not a debate. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Some people will call your boundary selfish simply because they benefited from you having none. Let them. You are not responsible for making every person comfortable with your decisions. Sometimes maturity is realizing that you can disappoint someone without being wrong. Your no does not need to sound powerful. It needs to remain no. The less material you give someone to negotiate, the harder it becomes for them to negotiate your life. Number 6. Never threaten consequences. You haven't already prepared. Warnings sound powerful, but they often expose weakness. "If you do that again, I'll leave. If you lie to me again, I'm done. If you disrespect me again, you'll regret it." Have you ever told someone, "If you do that again, I am done," only to give them another chance when they actually did it? That moment teaches them something you probably never intended to teach them. It teaches them that your words are negotiable. A threat can sound powerful in the moment because it creates emotional pressure. But if nothing follows, the threat becomes empty noise. The other person learns that they can cross your boundary, wait for your anger to disappear, and continue exactly as before. This is why real consequences should not begin with an announcement. Imagine someone repeatedly borrows money from you and refuses to pay it back. You have warned them several times. Each time you become angry, tell them never to ask again, and then eventually help them when they come back with another story. The problem is no longer that they do not understand your boundary. They understand it perfectly. They have simply learned that your boundary has no consequence. A more intelligent approach is quieter. Stop lending them money. Do not give another speech. Do not threaten them with what will happen next time. Change the arrangement. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, reduce their access to you. If someone keeps misusing confidential information, stop giving them confidential information. If someone repeatedly breaks an agreement, change the agreement or walk away. And if the situation involves something important, keep clear records so that your decisions are based on facts rather than emotion. This is not about revenge, it is about consistency. Your actions should make your boundaries believable. There is something deeply powerful about a person who does not need to announce every consequence because they have already decided what they will do. They do not say, "You will regret this." They simply stop participating in what keeps hurting them. That is the difference between a threat and a consequence. A threat asks someone else to change. A consequence changes what you are willing to tolerate. So do not make promises you are unwilling to keep. Prepare your response first. Then, if the boundary is crossed, let your actions speak. The consequence does not need an audience. It only needs to happen. Number 7. Control the information they can use against you. Not everyone deserves the full version of you. Your plans, fears, ambitions, relationships, financial situation, insecurities, and next move are not public property. Have you ever shared a personal fear, a future plan, or a private struggle with someone, only to hear it used against you later? That experience teaches a lesson many people learn too late. Not everyone who asks questions deserves answers. We often grow up believing that honesty means telling people everything, but wisdom teaches something different. Honesty is telling the truth. Privacy is deciding who has earned access to that truth. A manipulative person does not always need money, authority, or physical power to influence you. Sometimes all they need is information. If they know you fear rejection, they may use distance to make you chase them. If they know you desperately want approval, they may use praise to control your decisions. If they know your plans before they become reality, they may discourage you, mock your ideas, or quietly place obstacles in your path. Think about how many dreams have been weakened, not by failure, but by being shared too early with the wrong people. A seed grows best underground before anyone sees it. Human plans are often the same. This does not mean you become secretive, suspicious, or afraid of people. It means you become selective. There is a difference. Not everyone needs to know your next move. Not everyone needs to know your financial situation. Not everyone needs access to your insecurities, your ambitions, or the private battles you are fighting. Some people celebrate your growth, others study your weaknesses. Learning the difference is one of the great skills of adulthood, and here is something many people never realize. Silence can be a form of protection. When people know less about your fears, they have fewer ways to pressure you. When they know less about your plans, they have fewer ways to interfere. When they know less about what you need, they have fewer ways to control you. Your life does not have to be an open book for everyone. Some chapters are public, some chapters are private, and wisdom is knowing the difference. Adding extra 2 important points, which take us to number 8. Never chase someone who is deliberately creating uncertainty. One of the oldest manipulation tactics is controlled ambiguity. They become warm, then cold, interested, then distant. Have you ever noticed how quickly your peace disappears when someone suddenly changes the way they treat you? Yesterday, they were warm and interested. Today, they barely respond. Then, just when you begin pulling away, they become affectionate again. You start wondering what happened. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? Should I message them again? And without realizing it, you are no longer simply experiencing a relationship. You are trying to solve a puzzle that someone else keeps changing. This is where controlled uncertainty becomes powerful. A manipulative person may give you just enough attention to keep you invested, then withdraw it just enough to make you chase. You begin working harder for the same attention that used to come naturally. Think about someone who repeatedly cancels plans at the last minute but becomes warm whenever you stop reaching out. If you keep asking for explanations, you may accidentally teach them that distance is an effective way to regain control of your attention. The deeper problem is not their silence. It is your desperation to interpret it. You cannot build peace around somebody else's inconsistency. Instead of asking, "How do I make this person choose me?" ask a better question. Is this pattern acceptable to me? That question returns the decision to where it belongs. You. You do not have to punish them. You do not have to create your own games by becoming cold. You simply stop chasing clarity from someone who repeatedly creates confusion. If they want to communicate clearly, let them. If they want to explain themselves, they can. If they want the relationship, they can participate in building it. But you do not need to stand outside someone's emotional door, knocking repeatedly, hoping they will finally let you in. Sometimes the most powerful decision is made without an argument. You observe the inconsistency. You accept what the pattern is showing you. Then you make your own decision. Because uncertainty only controls you when you believe you must wait for someone else to resolve it. You don't. You are allowed to walk away from a question that keeps costing you your peace. Number 9. Watch what they do when they lose control. Anyone can appear charming when everything goes their way. The real psychological information appears when you say no. Have you ever wondered why someone can seem incredibly kind until you tell them no? That moment can reveal more about a person than months of pleasant conversations. When everything goes their way, almost anyone can appear patient, generous, understanding, and respectful. The real test begins when they encounter a decision they cannot control. You say no to a request. You disagree with them. You stop doing something they benefited from. You decide to spend your time differently. Then watch the transition. Does their kindness suddenly disappear? Do they become insulting? Do they withdraw affection to punish you? Do they bring other people into the situation to pressure you? Do they suddenly rewrite what happened and make you question your own memory? These reactions matter because they show you what the relationship may have been built on. Imagine a friend who is always friendly when you help them. You lend them money, solve their problems, listen to their complaints, and make yourself available whenever they need you. Then one day, you say, "I cannot help this time." Instead of accepting your decision, they say, "You have changed. I thought you were different." That sentence deserves attention. Maybe you have changed. Maybe you have simply stopped being as available as before. There is an important difference. Some people do not become angry because you treated them badly. They become angry because you stopped giving them something they had become accustomed to receiving. This does not mean every negative reaction makes someone a manipulator. People can be disappointed, emotional, or defensive without having harmful intentions. What matters is the pattern. One bad reaction can be human. Repeated punishment whenever you exercise your freedom is something else. So stop judging character only by how someone treats you when they want something from you. Watch what happens when you disagree. Watch what happens when you say no. Watch what happens when they cannot control the outcome. Because character is often revealed not when someone gets what they want, but when they discover that they cannot get it from you. And sometimes the moment they lose control of you is the moment you finally see them clearly. In final words, What if the strongest way to deal with a manipulator is to stop trying to defeat them at their own game? That is the deeper lesson behind everything we have explored. You do not need to expose every lie, answer every accusation, or prove that you understand someone's intentions. Sometimes confrontation gives a manipulator exactly what they need: your attention, your emotions, your explanations, and another opportunity to control the conversation. Real strategic strength looks different. You observe patterns instead of obsessing over promises. You protect information instead of telling everyone everything. You make your boundaries simple. You prepare consequences instead of making empty threats. You stop chasing people who deliberately create confusion. And most importantly, you watch what people do when they can no longer get their way. This is not about becoming cold, cruel, or suspicious of everyone. It is about becoming harder to control. You can remain kind without being easily manipulated. You can forgive without restoring someone's access to you. You can understand someone's behavior without excusing it. And you can walk away without needing them to admit that you were right. Because sometimes the greatest victory is not making the manipulator regret what they did. It is reaching a point where their tactics no longer determine your emotions, your decisions, or your peace. So remember this: do not waste your life fighting every person who plays games. Learn the game, recognize the pattern, protect your position, and when necessary, simply stop playing.